Welcome to the Art of Transitions. Today, our guest is Larry Moss. He is going to speak on the art of folding air. Please stay tuned and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Art of Transitions. It's really nice to have you. Our guest today is Larry Moss. He is an artist. He is an absolutely magnificent artist, and he has a special gift in which he folds air. I asked Larry to come be with us today because he's actually internationally renowned. He has traveled throughout the U.S. and the world. He's been on such shows as Martha Stewart, The Morning Show,
The Today Show.
The Today Show. He's been featured on the front of the Wall Street Journal and in various magazines, and he comes with a very specific and gracious talent that I don't think I've seen quite often or enough of. So Larry, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
And I want to thank you again. You and I actually met a couple of years ago, about a year and a half ago, and I actually had the honor of working with you. So it's really quite a pleasure to have you here to introduce your gift of the art of folding air to our community on another level again, for those of you who haven't met you. And I'd like to spend some time talking with you about how you got into this art work that you do and your trail to get here, because I think you have you have quite an interesting history.
Some interesting things have led me to this point, and you mentioned when we worked together was doing a team-oriented thing where it wasn't focused so much on the art that I create, but on getting that team to create the art and to work together. And that's really what led me to do what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. That going back, well, as an artist, I began my career as a street performer in New York. I used to perform in Central Park, and at the time was doing magic. Mm-hmm. And the thing about magic is that magicians are all over the place, and being that one, it doesn't matter how good you are, people are always comparing you to the other magicians they've seen. Mm-hmm. I needed a gimmick. Mm-hmm. And balloons were my gimmick. They were something different. That at the time there weren't many people around using that particular prop, so it was easy for me to draw the crowd in. Mm-hmm. And I could just do, once the crowd gathered, because of the balloons, I'd switch to the magic show. And after a little while, I realized that this was kind of silly. If the crowd was attracted to the balloons could keep them. But it wasn't so much the show and the art that I fell in love with. It was those crowds and what I could do with the crowds and bringing them in and making them part of everything that I was doing. And it kind of switched over the years from me just being that street performer and stage performer to me being the facilitator in creating community art.
Mm-hmm. And that is the gift. You moved your gift of folding air from balloon making to creation, which is, we get a chance, and the folks in the audience will get a chance to see some of the exhibits that you have created. They're going to see that we're not talking about folding the dog or the puppy or those kind of things into...
Right, it's not about the little object, the little giveaway, it's about creating art. Right. Anything that you can create with should be considered a valid medium for creating art. People sometimes look at me a little funny when I say balloons. I work with latex. In fact, usually when I get an opportunity to introduce myself to somebody that doesn't know my work, mm-hmm. I talk about I'm a visual artist and my medium is latex.
And that's exactly how I see you as well.
Because that way, that opens the door for me to actually talk about what I do, rather than place in their minds and not to put down the people that make dogs and cats at birthday parties, because I love that. I did that for a while. I think that's incredibly valuable. It makes people smile. People love it. I just do something different. So
you've moved it to a different level. And if we could invite the audience for just a moment to take a look at some of the pieces that Larry has created, some solo and some in company of others. And the first piece that we're going to have them look at, can you tell them a little bit about the woman in the dress that we see here?
Well, I've done several fashion shows now.
Yes.
And this, a lot of people are actually familiar with the viral email that went out showing all sorts of balloon fashions and dresses, and I love a lot of what was done in them, but I took a different approach. I wasn't trying to look at it. My skill is with balloons, not dressmaking. So the picture here was a dress that was actually designed by Milan Breton, a designer, a clothing designer. So I worked with him and discussed, worked out how we could do something with balloons with the medium that I had. So we were creating a real interesting dress. It wasn't just balloons that somebody was wearing.
Now, did I hear that you created a dress that actually walked a runway? Is that true?
Well, this one
was on a runway then.
It was for Fashion Week in New York that we did that one, but there were a couple of others. I had done for one Vegas fashion show. I did 3 different pieces: a Queen of Hearts, King of Hearts, and a Joker.
And we can see those here.
Yes, those also were all on the runway, and we had. Last summer, the same fashion show, I went back again and had done Alice in Wonderland and the Mad Hatter.
Very neat.
And what made that one interesting, again, just trying to push the envelope a little bit, a number of other artists are out there creating with balloons, but it's always been focused on dresses. Very few people have attempted to make men's clothing that could be worn. The dress being open at the bottom, you don't have the problem of the legs rubbing against each other and balloons popping. So that was an interesting challenge to design.
Right.
But we had a blast doing it.
That is exciting. So the clothes wear is one level and one kind of form of art that you create.
Right.
Could you share with our audience some of the other really exciting projects that you had an opportunity to work on?
Well, a series that I had completed somewhat recently was recreation of famous masterpieces. We were just talking about the problems with trying to explain to people what I do, that what I do is art, and I'm creating with a medium like, it's no different than working with pencils and a paintbrush. And I mean, to me, a balloon is my paintbrush. But I would constantly get, but it's still just balloons. It's not really art. So one of the things that I did to counter that was, I said, well, if I recreate with balloons some of the pieces that people already think of as art, they're going to have a harder time telling me that what's in front of them isn't art. It's stuff that they already identify as art. So I did this series of famous masterpieces: American Gothic by Grant Wood, Whistler's Mother, Andy Warhol's Campbell's Soup Can, and I had even done a Jackson Pollock recreation. And then those were all done as prints, designed to be printed, high quality, fine art prints, hang on walls. And I decided at that point I needed another piece to complete that. And Botticelli's Birth of Venus, we did as a live display. And we're actually looking at putting that in, touring that now, the large Botticelli, and
the viewing audience can actually see that. We're talking
so when we
about
did that gallery show, and what I hope to be doing some more is fill the gallery walls with the masterpieces that have already been done as prints, and then the one live piece. And for now, the Botticelli is the focus, but I can see doing several others along the way too, changing that. And those are the small stuff that I'll do working in my own space. But it is the really large community stuff that I just get really into.
And that is something that I would love to share with our audience, because one of the pieces of conversations that you and I have had that's very important to me and important to what I hope to be able to share on the show is how different kinds of individuals help transform companies, corporations, communities, individuals' lives, and helping them appreciate that transformation comes in many forms. And so in your case, it starts maybe with one single balloon, and that's the very start. Well, maybe a lot of planning, Larry. Let me not put it that that simple, but there is this essence of one simple balloon, and part of the community transformation work you've done has been amazing. Can you share with the audience some of those experiences?
Right. Well, that whole simple balloon concept is key to what I'm doing. When you bring groups of people together, they're often afraid to express themselves. They're afraid to share ideas, to do things. Using art, taking them out of what they're doing in their workplace, often opens entirely new doors. But when you walk into an office and you say, I'm going to have you guys work together by creating art, you see this look of panic on people's faces. I can't draw. I can't.
Yes.
That's what they think of art, that I'm going to give them a pencil and make them draw. And if I do that, they tend to be really embarrassed by what they've put on that piece of paper. And I'm not looking to judge anybody's artistic abilities or... And I believe everybody has artistic abilities, just that a lot of people haven't been given the opportunity to explore them. So what they draw might look really rough. But if I give them a balloon, they suddenly are not thinking of it the same way they think of that pencil. They're not thinking, I need to create a beautiful piece of art. They're thinking that what they're handling is a toy. So I can give balloons to people and direct them and say, try this. And they're a lot more willing to play with that toy and experiment than they are with that pencil where they feel they're being judged.
You used the word play, and that's exactly what it felt like when we were working together.
Right.
It was very much play, even though there was a focus to the work we were doing.
Right. So what we did in that experiment, and what I really like to do with groups, is say, I'm just going to show you the basics of it. I'm not even going to tell you everything about the properties of balloons. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Let them break. When you were 3 years old and picked up crayons to draw, nobody sat there with you and said, okay, now if you press just this way, the crayon will break. Or, no, you were given crayons and you experimented and you played with them and you learned the material that way. And that's what I try to do with the balloons. And just like those crayons broke, pencil points break, balloons break too. And there's always at least one person in the group that says, I'm afraid of it breaking. But you're not afraid of your pencil point breaking. And it's just part of the medium, and it's part of learning to work with any material. But the balloons also can be so much fun as people learn to work with them, because now once the focus shifts, they feel free, they feel comfortable. The focus shifts onto what can we create as a team, how can we work together and learn together.
Right.
You find that people in different areas are often able to use that material to communicate. So it might be people from two different departments, the sales team with the development team have a hard time communicating.
Right.
But suddenly, again, through this foreign material, they're both learning, they both have to exchange ideas, and communication starts happening.
You also get to see each other's strengths. You can see who can. That's what I observed when we were working together in the area college, creating a project for their serving leader. We did the upside down pyramid with them, and they came through, and different people had their strengths moving forward.
Right, and they picked up very quickly on who needed to ask which questions.
That was really neat to see.
And who to direct your questions to. And it was a lot of fun to see that whole dynamic. And people, I don't even think they realized at first that they were taking on a lot of the roles that they had at work.
Yeah, it was neat to see.
It just, I happen to know the answer to that. And those that tended to lead continued to lead and coach through problems and, hey, let's discuss things. And again, when we set that up, that was interesting because we had several different teams, and we said, okay, you all have the same task, go for it, see what each group can do. And they were so used to working together, and they preferred to work together, that the teams started to merge, and they started reassigning who belonged to which team.
Yes.
And that was a lot of fun. And so there was kind of this little playful competition between them. We're going to finish first, but you know what? Why don't we trade these people?
Right.
And it was really watching the dynamic in that room was fantastic.
It was very powerful. Take us to a bigger level. That would be a team building inside corporate. We've talked about, some of the individual pieces. If we can share with the audience your larger pieces, bringing a community together.
Okay.
Please share with the group something that you found most powerful.
The first of my large community projects was done in Tokyo. Where for Fuji Television, I was asked to help lead a crew to build a samurai fighting a demon.
Wow. And
this ended up being a 15,000 balloon project. And when I say community, it wasn't the community at large.
I'm just absorbing 15,000 balloons.
Right, now that sounds like a lot, but we'll get to the big stuff.
I'm going like, wow.
What was interesting about, or one of the really interesting points for me was this was in Tokyo. I didn't know the language at all. I had a phrase book that I carried in my pocket so that I could get by, and I had a translator that was always in my shadow.
Oh, wow.
But often it wasn't necessary for me to go through the translator, because the balloons, once everybody became familiar with the material, the balloons acted as the universal translator.
That is so incredible.
And people learned to gesture towards things, and they would make things, and if they wanted to show me an idea, they would pick up balloons and make something on a small scale to show me what they were going after. And that usually worked. So we brought together, that was, it was a while ago. I want to say it was about 10 celebrities from Japan that were working together, plus a crew about the same size that was behind the scenes, and they had to merge and they had to learn to work together. And the end result was this giant samurai and the demon, and it played really well. And it showed me that I didn't have to know all of the ins and outs of the little pieces, and I was learning their culture from them as we constructed this thing. And they learned the skill, they learned to work together, and it really was, for me, an eye-opener. The language barrier, all of the steps that we had to cross to create this piece. And it got me interested in doing more larger stuff when I came home.
Great. And that is actually a huge transition. When you look at transitions and how things move forward, transitioning into a new language, a new universal language.
And for me, it transitioned my art. It changed my viewpoint on things. I had been thinking about the small stuff I could do myself. And it turned into, no, I can create something bigger and better. That really is, the whole became greater than the sum of the parts. I mean, we could, if each person was doing the same thing, we'd be duplicating each other's work, but everybody learning where to turn to somebody else in the process. And then getting larger from there, trying to continue this whole pattern. I said I wanted to come home, but I didn't do, the next big project was in Belgium, where we had set a world record. That was 40,000 balloons. I
was wondering if this is going to get bigger. I can't imagine 40,000 balloons. I just can't see that many balloons. It's just amazing.
It was, the soccer players in a field of grass. And people often don't realize when they first look at the picture. So we're going to have to zoom in on that.
Right.
People don't realize that I'm actually standing in that picture with Royal Sorels on the other side of the soccer ball.
Can we show the audience this one? So you're standing in the middle?
In the field of grass, right in the middle of this soccer field.
Okay.
And that gives you a sense of scale now.
And size. That's incredible.
So that was, 40,000 balloons. I can't remember the exact count now. We needed to know for the record.
Right.
45 artists from around the world. 7 languages were spoken on the floor of that gym where we were building. So again, we required the balloons, the artwork, to be that universal translator.
So 7 plus 1. 7 languages plus the language of art.
Plus the language of art, correct.
And
the art was really what brought everybody together.
That's beautiful.
And the excitement from the people that were watching, because people would come every day to see what we were building and see how it changed since the day before.
Right.
And I realized then that I needed to find a way to integrate the community into it, so everybody watching could be part of it.
So that project transitioned a new level of community integration.
Right. And then we moved to Sodus Point, New York, where the fantastic flying octopus where it was actually a smaller sculpture by about half.
Right.
But it was so much bigger in the way it involved people. It was it involved motion now. It flew. It had a pilot that actually flew it. John Ninamiya is a hot air balloon and gas balloon pilot that flew this over Sodus Bay.
So we're going to take a look at this one, and this is the octopus that the community created.
They watched us build, but the very end of it, we had a parade. We had to build all of the pieces in a barn 3/4 of a mile away from our launch site.
Okay.
Because we had to launch from outdoors, and you can't build for 5 days outdoors with balloons. The balloons will never survive it, the wind, the sun, if it rains. So we built it in a boathouse and then had a parade with the community. So we had hundreds of people helping to carry parts of this.
3/4 of a mile down the road?
3/4 of a mile down the road.
So they were doing a community, was this a community summer activity?
It was a big
or
festival in the summer.
Okay, okay.
And the festival ended up, it was something that they had already done before. It started as a film festival, but the focus of it ended up being this whole octopus and the octopus parade.
Wow.
And they brought us pieces to the launch field and helped us get things in place as we assembled. And over the course of the day, we got it ready to launch. And again, it was, people were so excited about it, and the fact that we could let them put their hands on the balloons. And that's something else that, in a lot of, you walk into an art museum, and there aren't a lot of art museums that let you touch the art.
Correct.
And here we're taking something as fragile as balloons and saying, go for it. It's a temporary medium. It's not going to last anyway. You better have fun with it. So we put the balloons in their hands. We let them assist wherever it was possible. And again, the transition to that next step. What are we going to do to make it even more in their hands and make them creators, not just helpers in the final stages?
So they were invited to be creators.
So, and that's where Balloon Manor came in. So Balloon Manor, the silly, creepy, funny, weird, slightly haunted castle made entirely out of balloons, 100,000 balloons, 10,000 square feet. 10 rooms, a fully operational haunted house.
And this was located?
We've done it 4 times now in the Rochester area. And, people are asking us about bringing it on the road, and we're looking, and the only thing holding us back is the funding.
Right.
We're ready to travel. And there's another exhibit that we're working on called Elastic Park.
Yes.
Which is full of dinosaurs and all of the dinosaurs that people remember from things like the movie Jurassic Park.
Right.
Or the book, going back to Michael Crichton's original vision of it.
Can you give them an example? Can you help our audience understand the size that Balloon Manor would fill?
Well, 10,000 square feet. So with the 10 rooms of this haunted house, we had tours going for a week, for 10 days. A tour lasted about 30 minutes.
To walk through.
To walk through and see everything in there. And where we brought people in and had them work on it, each year we invited people, a number of them would come back and take bigger steps towards, more elaborate art with us, but the first thing we give you to do when you show up is building walls. We teach you how to inflate the balloons and build the walls, and people work in teams to create these, the main structure that holds it together. Those that come back year after year, we invite them to take on other tasks. And, some of the people that started out just building walls have become part of the artist crew.
Yes.
And have been helping make the monsters that characterize it as a haunted house. And I should say, we call them monsters. We say it's a haunted house. It's slightly haunted.
Yes.
We actually try really hard to make it as scary as we possibly can with balloons.
Yes, as scary as you can be with a balloon. Right.
so we frequently have 2- and 3-year-olds walking through that are laughing and smiling, and you don't go in to be scared, you go in to enjoy the artwork.
Yes. I'd like our audience to know a few other things about you, and that is, not only are you a magnificent artist, but you are actually quite an author too. You are a master in your field. You are recognized as a master in your field, and you have written, you and I were trying to figure out how many books you had written before you'd come in.
Yeah, I want to say it's like a half dozen books. Some of the books were on CD-ROM.
Right.
I'm looking, because there are a couple that haven't been printed in a while, but people are actually asking me to bring some of them back, and to refresh them a little bit.
And share what's in these books, the basic pieces of art, of creating folding art, or...
This, I've always had a different view of art, and from the beginning, the first book was your basic instruction book. How do you blow up the balloon, twist it into a dog, and take it further? But I didn't want it to be focused on that, on making dogs. I wanted it to be fun and interesting, and had an artistic angle, and it tells a story. I mean, how many times do you buy a how-to book, you read the first few pages, and you get really frustrated and put it down and don't look at it again?
Right.
So this was a book that had a storyline that went through it, twisting history.
Oh, very neat. Yeah.
I had actually started out at one point trying to learn about the history of balloon art, where it came from. And I had a really hard time finding that history. It turned out to be a much bigger project than I had anticipated. So I scrapped the history that I found and wrote my own. Just created, decided, let's invent a new story. Going back to the French caves and the French cave paintings.
Right.
So I had found these drawings of these cave paintings of balloon art, going back, and balloon dogs and whatever, and take everybody as they read through the book and learn on this journey through balloon history, which ties in now with Elastic Park, which and going back to the old balloonosaurs and
and all of those.
I refer to that history as my big blow theory.
There you go, the big blow. There you go. That's great. We are almost at the end of our show already, which I'm really sorry, because there's so much and so much creation that you've done, and we'll have to make sure we can see where you're going in your future and have you come back. In the meantime, though, I really would like our audience to take a peek at some of these books. You can obtain these books.
There are 2 right now that are current, that are Barnes & Noble exclusives, Balloon Architecture and Balloon Engineer, which, again, do not focus on the basic dogs or any of that. It's something that somebody that knows nothing about balloons can pick up and learn from, but it actually has you create more interesting things. There's an Eiffel Tower, Niagara Falls is in there. So it's if you're interested in art and craft, you can do it with no background on balloons. Start creating real stuff.
And if you have other questions for Larry, his contact information is standing right before you now. And please feel free to contact him via the phone number and the website and email that you see present on the screen right now. And on that note, if you also have questions or you have topics that you would like me to host on this show, please feel free to contact me as well in the contact information that you see. On that note, what I'd like to do is extend my air-filled gratitude to you, and thank you. Thank you for allowing myself and our company to participate and work along with you and your team in bringing this work.
I'm looking forward to doing more.
Absolutely. So thank you, and we thank our audience. Have a great day. Thanks, Larry.
This program was produced through Penfield Community Television in Penfield, New York.